Hi guys, I'm Mike Goldstein of EasyDatingCoach.com. I am so excited for today's meeting. We've got my brand new friend that I met at a love coaching networking group a few months ago in LA. She's a genius and she's got the coolest story. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Sharon. How are you?
Hey, Mike. It's so good to see you again, although virtually this time.
Actually, I got to give you some gravitas. Dr. Sharon, what am I doing? Dr. Sharon.
Dr. Sharon, yes.
I love it. All right. Dr. Sharon, this like melted my heart when you told me, and it was so beautiful. Tell me about your love story, because it's just so neat.
Oh my God, thank you. Yeah, well, you know what? Gosh, it was a long time coming. I got to tell you that much. I dated in my 20s and dated in my 30s. I was in Austin, Texas during my 30s. And I just guess I thought that love was just going to happen. I thought that marriage was just going to happen. And actually, I hear that from a lot of my clients. They think that marriage is just going to happen for them. But I wasn't very intentional about anything. And I had some boyfriends in my 30s, but none of them really were the right guy. And then when I moved back to California, I lived in Texas in my 30s, and I moved back to California in my 40s. And it was sort of a rough transition coming back to California in my 40s because all of my friends who I had left back when I was 29 had really moved on with their life. Understandably, they had gotten married, they had had kids, they had developed a lot of new friendships during those 10 years that I was gone. And so I came back to a city that, although it was my hometown, I felt a little out of place now. And I had to sort of develop new friendships and find a new place for myself here. And I started working for a small startup company, so I wasn't really meeting people there. And actually, at the end of my time at that startup company, I got working with this research that kind of left me in a really lonely place because I was doing that research for a year kind of on my own. And at the end of that year, I kind of fell into a depression because of all of that time by myself. And that was a tough time. It was probably one of the darkest moments in my life. So at the end of the year, I went to see Dr. Pat Allen, who was doing these weekly seminars. And I connected with her and her message. And I started to go to her weekly seminars and then signed up for her school to learn more about her and her methods of teaching her tools. And my background is as a psychotherapist. I was working in psychiatric hospitals prior to coming to do that work with the startup company. And so I signed up for her school and ended up working with her individually through her school and teaching her tools. And she really helped me get in touch with the way that I had been probably pushing men away in some way because of my own way of being such an achievement-oriented woman, being not knowing what I was doing to talk about myself, say like, look at how interesting the things I've done. I have my doctorate and I've studied musicians, and isn't that interesting? I've worked with a international film festival, and I've traveled, and I've done this and I've done that. And that isn't really connecting now, is it? It sounds interesting, but it's not. It's being interesting, not interested. And so, and so what happened is ultimately is that through working with her, I found out that I needed to sit back a little bit. And so I learned how to really connect in a more vulnerable way with the men that I was going out with. And so over time, I learned how to be more receptive, more open, more available. And one night, I was with a girlfriend, and she said to me, "Don't you think that it's time that we just give up on men? Don't you think it's time that we just decide, kind of like Sex and the City, that it's our girlfriends that we should just say, these are our soulmates, and men will just be people that we just sort of connect with on a serially, monogamous basis, and that we just decide that that's the way we're going to live our life." And I said to her, "No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that." And 1 week later, I was out with that same girlfriend down on Laguna Beach, and a man came up and bumped into me and said, "Hey, nice hat." And I looked up at him and I said, "Thanks." And that man is now my husband. And it's like a story for the fairy tales, really. It's just, he's such the right man for me. He's a man better than I could have ever written or expected. If I had written a list of all the things that I wanted, I would have sold myself short. So I'm so blessed and honored that he's the man for me. And so it really, I'm just feel so lucky that Dr. Pat Allen came into my life. I'm so lucky that my husband is in my life. And I still just kind of get choked up because it was such a long time coming. I met him at 48. We got married at 50. And I think a lot of women would have given up at some point, but I did always have hope in my heart that this was going to happen. Yeah.
I love this story. It just makes me smile. This is the second time I've heard it. And it's just like, love is possible. If you want it, you'll get it. And you can't just sit there and just hope it's going to happen. You have to do some work on yourself. You have to figure it out. You know, if you want to get in shape, you go to the gym, you eat healthy. You want to get a husband, well, you work on, well, what do men want? What do I want? How do I make myself more attractive? I love it. Now I'm talking about attractive. You know, looks are only going to get you so far. It's really about how does he feel when he's around you? Does he feel happy? Does he feel special? Does he feel like this is an amazing experience? Am I going to be successful in making her happy for the rest of our lives?
Absolutely. And you know what, Mike, I don't mean to cut up, but I've been to therapists, and this is no knock on therapists. I was a therapist, but I had been to therapists, a number of therapists, and they were helping me do some personal insight, but they really hadn't helped me move forward anything about how I could attract a man to be attracted to me. All they were doing was helping me do some insight work. And the change was seeing someone who was really helping me understand the masculine feminine dynamic, who were helping me understand more about the social dynamics of men and women, and really dive deep into more about relationships and love and dating. And so the difference between seeing a therapist versus seeing someone who specialized in love and dating was really such a critical juncture in my journey of finding the right man and attracting the right man. That was such a huge turning point for me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a story that has nothing to do with anything, but it's fun.
Good.
So since you were talking about Dr. Pat Allen, I don't think I told you this when I met you, but it's, so everyone who doesn't know Dr. Pat Allen, she's like the original dating coach or love coach, sex coach. What is she, like in her 90s now?
She's like probably 84, 85. She's
85. So think of like this little old grandma giving dating, sex, love advice, like just spewing out like, yeah, you got to put his penis in your mouth, like a grandma saying this.
Right.
That is Dr. Pat Allen.
Right.
And so my very liberal parents in terms of just saying what's on their mind and very communicative and not afraid to talk about sex. And I'm their child. I don't want to hear about their sex life. Of course, when I turn 13, I find the Dr. Pat Allen sex board game in the basement, in our finished basement. And so obviously, as any good 13-year-old, I'm like, oh, well, come here, friends. Let's go see what this is. And so then you roll the dice and it says, oh, we'll kiss his neck for 7 seconds and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so we have the Dr. Pat Allen sex game, and we've had it for, over 20 years, 30 years.
That's hilarious. I had no idea. That's so funny. She really is just a legend. She really is a legend.
Oh, she started all of this.
Yeah.
Anyway, I regress.
No, I love it. All right,
fantastic. We need to talk more about you and dating and love advice. All right. So I want to keep this broad first, and then we'll go specific. What's your prescription for smart, career-oriented women making a change in their love life to finally have the love they want?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because that is kind of who I work with, is these really smart women. And because they're focused on their career so much, especially in the early years, and they're happy to be focused on their career, they want to move it forward. What they don't recognize that they're doing is that they don't take that boss hat off when they get home from work. And they making that switch from being a boss at work or to to being a girlfriend at home or being a wife at home. That's a really important switch to make. I was just at the E-Women conference where Sandra Yancey, who's the founder and CEO of E-Women, super, super smart woman, super brilliant woman. She talks about how she makes that switch when she gets home. What she does is she backs her car up into the garage, and by slowing down and backing her car up, that's when she knows she's making the switch, by taking that time to slow down. And then she walks into the house and she becomes the wife of the house because she's the boss of her husband at work. And then she's able to walk into the house and say, honey, where are you taking me to dinner? You know, just drive. Because then he makes the decision about where they're going to eat. She doesn't care. They're going to have food. They're going to have little glasses with stems on them and red liquid. She'll be happy. And she's happy to have him make that decision. And I think the beautiful thing about that is that I guess the question to ask yourself is, do you want to make every single decision in your life from here forward? I know I don't want to. And if you're the type of woman who's kind of a control freak, and if you are, let your freak flag fly. But know that up front and let the man know that you're that kind of woman, because there are many passive men out there who would be happy to have you be the one in control. But there are some men who aren't going to want that. And so you want to have that negotiation up front. Okay, I'm happy for you to make all the decisions. Or, no, I'm not happy with you making all the decisions. But you want to make that discussion up front and out loud. I want to make the decisions at home. I'm this energy. I don't want to make the decisions at home. I'm this energy. But know which one you are so that you can separate it out and walk in the door knowing which one you're going to be.
What about the woman who, you know, has the good job and has that like masculine energy at work that just kicks butt at work and is going up the career ladder, but also wants to be the control freak at home and say, here's how we do it. This is what we're doing at this time, blah, blah, blah. But she wants a type A masculine domineering man. Is that a possible combination, or does she really need to start looking at the passive men that are going to let her be in charge?
It's a difficult thing, because the thing is, I think, yeah, we think of power couples and we think, oh, they're both going to be type A, and you can have that. But the thing is then you've really got to watch how you talk to each other, because if you're super savvy, then the conversation has got to be that one of you is going to take the more passive role in each conversation. So, but these are some of Pat Allen's tools, where if you're going to be the one who makes the decision in this particular conversation, then the other person has got to be, okay, you know, like, this is your decision time, then I'm going to be the one who's talking in my feelings. So this is my plan or suggestion. How do you feel about it? Then this is the person's going to answer, that feels good to me, or that doesn't feel good to me. What do you think about that? So it goes back and forth in the conversation. But these have got to be two very savvy people who are always listening for how the other person starts the conversation, because whoever starts the conversation, then the other person has to respond with how whatever the opposite is. Because if one person starts with the feelings, then the other person has to talk about how they're thinking, you know, or whatever, thinking.
I love that. So ultimately, like, really any dichotomy of feminine masculine energy can work. It's just having the strategy or the upfront contract with your partner of, here's how we're going to handle situations. Here's how we're going to coexist, and do it in a way where both of us get what we want. One of us is going to have a plan, and we're going to say whether we like the plan or not. And together we're going to have a plan that we're both excited about.
Absolutely. It's just a little bit more challenging if you're both the type A people to be on guard for that, both being competitive and both challenging each other, because that's who you kind of intuitively or instinctively are. And so you really have to have that sense of, we're always going to be listening for what the other person is saying. If one of you is more competitive and the other one's more passive, that's obviously going to be an easier relationship to navigate. but it's not that you can't work it out. It's just that you're going to have to be on, kind of on watch. Yeah.
I love it. That is like the best answer I've ever heard to this question.
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay. So what do you think is preventing women from finding love these days?
Yeah, you know what? I think with all the problems we face with looking for love and attracting love, I think one of the issues is that women aren't actually supporting other women. When a woman says, you know what, I'm really looking for a relationship, I think that we think that we're supporting other women when we say, you know what, girlfriend, you don't need a man. They're more trouble than they're worth. You're so good on your own. Look at how strong you are. Look at how, mighty you are. That's not really supporting her with what she just said. She said she's looking for a relationship. How about saying, you know what can I do to help support you in that endeavor? I think that would be so much more supportive than telling her how fine she is on her own. That's not supporting her. And so I think we need to stop shaming other women, because I think ultimately that's kind of what we're doing. We're shaming her, and we're actually putting our own agenda on her, because maybe we want her to stay single because we're single, and it would be more fun for us if she stays single with us. Or maybe we're saying a man's more trouble than he's worth because we just got out of a bad relationship, or we're in a bad relationship, and so we're putting that on her. So I would really like to put a missive out there for women to start supporting other women in whatever it is that they want. If they want to be in a relationship, then let's support them in that. I really feel strongly about this. Yeah.
I feel very strongly about it too, actually, because I've dealt with that with a lot of my partners where, for example, the last woman I was dating, she had a single girlfriend. And if we got in an argument, she'd go to the single girlfriend and vent the problem, which is great. We want her to have an outlet. But then her single girlfriend would always say, oh, dump him. We'll be single and have a blast.
Yes.
And, it wasn't even like that bad of an argument. It was just like, hey, he's not cleaning the dishes or something.
Right.
And, obviously that wasn't great for me, and probably not great for the partner, because it's like, well, the whole point of a relationship is trying to figure out how to make things work, assuming it's a healthy, happy relationship.
Right.
So that's, yeah, go ahead.
And ultimately, we're all meant to be in relationship. We're all meant to have a witness to our lives, someone to support us through the hard times. Our girlfriends are wonderful. We all need our girlfriends. We all need our tribe. But really, we're meant to have someone to witness our daily life, and someone to wake up with, and someone to go to bed with, and someone to share our meaningful little tiny moments. And I want that for everyone who's feeling lonely, who's feeling deprived of being touched and held. And so, like, your girlfriends can't give you that. And the girlfriends can be there for a ton, but they're not going to be there. I mean, unless, of course, we're talking about, a gay or lesbian relationship. But if we're talking about, having a man in your life, then it's going to be that man. And so, I really just feel so strongly about this, and that we need to support each other in what it is we're looking for, because being touch deprived is a real problem in our society. There's so many women and men who are feeling that lack of nurturing that we all do really need.
Well, let me put this on the table, because here's the real thing. Like, I just moved to LA in my mid-30s, and it's a lot harder to make friends now than, let's say, when you're in college or high school and you're around people, around sporting event, whatever. So let's look at our 50-year-old woman or 60-year-old woman that now has these friends. But the friend is maybe a little toxic in the sense of like, yeah, you don't need a man, or break up with him. And she's more thinking about herself instead of thinking about you, which a good friend would. So do you try to work with this relationship, or do you get rid of it? Like, what's the strategy?
Work with the friendship?
Yeah.
No, you know what? I don't think so. I think, this is the sort of thing that I distance myself from. I think as you become more self-actualized in life, and you realize that friendships are toxic, yes, it's harder to make friends, but I think you seek more people who feel like you. And I was just out with a girlfriend last night for dinner, and we were saying how there's some friends that, you know, you just realize what place they have in your life. And as time goes on, there's some people that you just like slowly distance yourself from because you're not seeking the same thing in life. And you just have to kind of gently kind of move along because you're not seeking the same things. And it's okay. It's not, I mean, some people, yes, are genuinely toxic, but some are just that we aren't doing the same things in life. We're not seeking the same things in life. And it's okay. It's not an ugly thing. It's just, we're not going after the same things. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that's absolutely right. Like, you kind of got your inner circle of friends, then you've got your next layer of friends, and then you got so like, all right, these are the people that I hang out with all the time because they got my back, they're fabulous, and I love spending time with them. Then these people, you know, I see them occasionally because maybe they're friends with those friends, and they're all right. And then I got these people who, but, you know, I'm going to see them occasionally. And so now we've got our Rolodex of friends that, all right, these are the folks that I'm going to call like all the time and set things up with. Yes, that's how we're going to do it.
I love it. Yeah.
Period.
I love that it's a Rolodex because you know how many people don't have any idea what a Rolodex is.
Yeah. Remember those days where we wrote down the numbers? That was the best.
Those are the best. Yeah. But it's true because some people you do realize the toxicity of things. You know, it's like wow, when I'm around these people, I realize how much they talk about other people. And the minute I walk out of this room, they're talking about me. These aren't going to be my tribe. I don't want that. I want the people who are like calm, cool, like we're supportive, we're loving. These are the people that I'm going to feel good with. These are the people that like lift each other up. That, you know, we're talking about the same things. We both have the same level of self-development. We're seeking the same, you know, level of the rising tide raises all ships. That's this group of people. Those are the people that are my people, you know?
Yes. All right. We got to move on. I think they got it. What else is challenging women from finding a partner? Dr. Sharon.
Yeah, you know what? So, like I said, I was at this conference recently, and I can't tell you how many women came up to me and said, "Oh, so I hear what you do. What? And I'm still single. What do you think?" I think it's that I'm intimidating to men. Is that what you think it is? And I just was like, no, I don't think that's what it is. I think that that's a mistaken belief that men love strong women. They love successful women. They love self-sufficient women. But what they don't like is women who are competitive. And I think that there's a nuance between knowing the difference between strong and competitive. And that's the nuance that I think most women don't understand. That competitive is when you're changing a man's plan. Competitive is when you're challenging his every thought, idea, suggestion. You know, competitive is when you're doing things like, you know, you're just challenging him in when he's doing something and you're telling him that he needs to be doing it a different way. When you're mothering him by saying, don't you think you need to get a coat to go outside? It's kind of cold out there. It's like, hey, he's a full grown ass man. I think he might know how to do things at this point in his life. Those are things that are being competitive, and you don't realize that you're being competitive with him. So I think that's when those are the nuances that women don't realize. They think they're actually maybe even being nurturing, and nurturing is actually mothering, and that's actually being competitive. So it's figuring those things out: what's being competitive versus what's being strong and, you know, self-sufficient.
Yes, that so needs to be said. And as the man, I need to tell you that this is fact. If you give me a woman that is making $300 to $500K a year in some big job, the only thing I'm going to say is, wow, that's awesome.
Right.
That's not intimidating. That's not, I mean, and there will be some men that are intimidated. So let's not, you know, worry about those guys. That's not your guy. If you're sitting in this bucket of being a successful woman, you want the man that's like, whoa, that is so freaking hot. Good for you. Congratulations.
Right.
And that's the guy. And that's me. I'm telling you, like, that's awesome. That's so sexy. Tell me more.
Right. Exactly.
But you hit it on the head. What we get confused with, it's the woman that's being competitive. And it can be so nuanced and small. Like, let me give you a perfect example of how we sometimes fumble this up. And we didn't even realize. we're trying to connect. So here's what the guy says, like, oh, I just got this amazing promotion to director at this advertising company. And then the woman will go, oh, that's so cool. You've got to meet my friend Mark. He's the VP at, which is a step higher. One step higher. VP is higher than director there. And you just go, oh, I guess my promotion's not that good. She knows the VP at whatever. And that immediately sinks the guy down. Like he, you know, if this was him, it's like, meow.
That's
Like,
exactly it. You nailed it. That is such a good example. That is such a good example. It's like, let me introduce you to my friend. That is so perfect. That's such a good example. Oh, I love it. Love it.
and it's, you know, it's sad because you were trying to connect with him and you were trying to be helpful. So all the intentions were there,
Right.
but the end result was he just felt smaller and he felt like less of a man. The male ego is very fragile. And I hate to say this to women because they're like, why do I need to coddle a man? Well, you kind of need to, or unfortunately, you're going to be single forever because he's just going to feel small. And I know everyone watching doesn't want to make a man feel small or less than, because then what's he going to want to do for you? Is he going to want to tell you, hey, you're so beautiful, you're so smart, you're so fantastic? He's just going to feel like, man, I'm a loser. And when he's a loser, he doesn't want to court you.
Right. And here's what I would say is would you want to make a woman feel small? Let's not make this even be a gendered thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually, would you do this to a girlfriend? Would you want to make a girlfriend feel small? Because I kind of have thought about this a lot. We always talk about, why do I have to take care of a man's ego? Well, then, like, really, would you want to do this to a girlfriend? And so I really think it's about, would you want to make anyone feel less than, smaller? You know, obviously you get my point. And so I just think it's a courtesy thing. I know we're trying to help each other. And I know you're trying to say, here, I have someone to introduce you to who could help, but, or maybe just make a connection. But it really does make the other person feel like, oh, well, that's, you know, how is you introducing me to that person going to help? Like, if you're giving me some idea of how that's going to make it help, like, okay, but it just sounds like you just like, yeah, it just feels like it just, oh, great. Yeah, I don't know. I get your point. It just totally makes sense.
So, like, unfortunately, like, let's society, like, you know, women are just like the more beautiful sex, right? You have the curves, you have the no hair, you're prettier. It is what it is.
Right.
And men, like, you know, for years, thousands of years, we were supposed to be the financially stable, the provider. And if you're bringing down our job or our financial, that's kind of like we're bringing down your appearance. Like, if a man said, like, hey, you don't look very pretty today. Like, could you imagine if a man said those words to a woman? Like, she would be like, there would be an uproar in society where we'd be like, this guy's an asshole.
Right.
And this is almost the equivalent of, like, you're bringing down his financial capabilities.
Right.
And I know this example sounds small and it had good intentions, but it is kind of the equivalent.
No, it's actually the perfect example. If you say something bad about a man's wallet, it's like telling a woman her hips have gotten larger. It's the same thing. You don't do it. You don't say, oh, it doesn't sound like you're making much money, you know, like, and to say, oh, your hips have gotten large. You know, it's like you don't do, both of them are just, they're off limits. They're off limits.
I love this. All right. We got to move on. I think we hammered home the point. How can women speak to men to get an emotional connection and commitment?
Yeah, I think it's really important how women talk to men. And it's kind of a little bit of what I was saying before. You have to look at how you're talking to men. Do you change his plans? Do you give him advice? I mean, if he's loading the dishwasher, do you tell him to do it a different way? Because the minute you start doing that, then it's like, that is going to be your job for life. You will never do it again. And so don't do it. Do you tell him that you want to, and let me go back to changing his plans. If he said to you, you know, I want to take you to dinner tonight. I was thinking Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, and you're like, oh, how about Fleming's instead? And it's like, why did you change that plan? What was your point there? So there's a way to say that it doesn't feel good to you, that steak sounds like too heavy for you, but if you're just changing a steakhouse for a steakhouse, there's no point in it. There's no point. You're just changing it. And that's being very controlling. So so just look at how you're talking to men, because every time you do things like this, change the plans, tell him how to do things, challenge his thought, idea, or suggestion, then you are being disrespectful of the man. And a man feels loved when he's respected. That's how they feel loved and cherished. Women in general feel loved when their feelings are heard. I can tell you, I used to try to tell a man how I felt and try and use logic to do that. And so I never felt heard, because the minute I tried to logic with a man, then he would try and logic back with me on why my feelings didn't make sense. Well, I needed to just say how I felt and stop. And because then that way my feelings actually were heard. And so we really need to understand this idea of feelings, say it, they'll be heard. They can cherish them then. Men being respected, they feel loved, because then it's just this love fest cycle that's going on. And then that's how we feel. We feel respected when our feelings are cherished. They feel loved when their thoughts are respected. It's a great cycle.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because, at the beginning of that, it kind of, we don't want women to be doormats where the man just rolls over them, right? And then you came full circle and said, all right, women need to express their feelings and be heard. What I find as a man and, working with thousands of male clients is they're not great at understanding that they just need to listen and make the woman feel heard. So how do we get since we're teaching women, how do we get them to tell the man how to execute this process in a way that is good for her and good for him?
Yeah, so for instance, oftentimes, come home, start talking about how I feel, and then my husband starts to problem solve the feeling. Yeah. And it's like, wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you want to help me by problem solving this. However, I'm not in a place where problem solving is really what I'm needing from you. I just really want you to hear how I'm feeling. And he's like, right on, I get it. I'm here. I'm here to listen. And so it's just about really letting it be known, like, what is it that you need from me? And, he knows well enough now to say, how can I help you feel better? Just that's probably two of the most powerful questions that the most powerful question a man can ask is, how can I help you feel better? The most powerful question a woman can ask is, what can I do to help us do better? And those two questions really just set the tone for two people that are there to help the relationship do better.
Oh, that was powerful. I hope everyone rewinds that and writes those questions down, because that was spot on. And I hope men were watching that, because that was beautiful. They didn't solve the problem, and they made their woman feel supported, versus the woman is actually saying, like, well, how do we solve this?
That's right.
So it's totally different. Totally different for the sexes.
Yeah.
And so, wow. I mean, that's the gold star right there. We need to understand the differences between the sexes. And of course, we're generalizing. Not everyone's the same. But on the majority, this is how it works. This is how we solve problems for both sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Let's go.
Super powerful.
So, Sharon, and I'm actually interested in this too, because we've never talked about this. How do you work with clients?
Yeah, so I do have an office where I see clients in my office, but I also do work with clients over Zoom and see them that way. But what I do basically is we have sessions, but I also use text and quick check-in phone calls, so that we're keeping in touch sort of constantly, so that we can answer the in-between questions. I don't wait in between. So that things can be answered in real time. And I think it's that in-between time that really moves people forward much more quickly. And so it's sort of like a program. And I think that all of that just works together really well, so that things move very quickly.
Now, do you act as a therapist or a dating coach or tell me where you sit?
So I'm glad you asked that. That's a great question. So I call myself a consultant because I come from the standpoint, like as a business consultant comes in and looks at the whole system and says, where are there issues? Okay, well, I can see there's an issue here, an issue here. Let me tell you how to solve that. This is what isn't going, because people come in, they say, I don't know what I'm doing and saying wrong. It's like, well, I can see what you're doing and saying wrong. Let me tell you how you're doing it wrong. Whereas therapists will sort of not do that. They're going to say, let's come to some holy grail of insight here. Let's wait for that to bubble up. And coaches are there for accountability and for so many great things. But I'm very much of a very directive. I'm going to tell you what's going wrong and how it's going wrong, and tell you exactly what to do and say differently. And so it's very directive and very forward moving. And so it's definitely a little different.
Boom. I love that. Cool. So we'll put some information down below if you guys want to find Dr. Sharon. But I think the first step for everyone, if they want to learn more about you, and they should, is we should hook them up with a free gift, because it's kind of how I roll. I like to give stuff for free, and I want everyone to fall in love. So I want to give them as much content so they can do it themselves. So what is your free gift that we're going to hook everyone up with?
Yeah, so I'm going to give away a video that's called How to Attract the Deeply Intimate Relationship You Desire. And we've got 3 actionable hot tips that will tell you about how to attract the right person for you.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Juicy.
That is juicy. I like it. Cool. Well, everybody, if you made it this far, you obviously need to subscribe to my channel because you've been watching for a while. And I've got like 250-ish videos. This is just one. We could be watching a lot. And I put a new one out every single Tuesday, like clockwork. So there's a lot more content to come. And make sure you hit like and give us a comment. I want to know what your favorite part of this video was. So I'm testing you. This is probably about a 30-minute video. Like, let's see if you made it through this whole puppy. So what was the best part? Anyway, guys, I love all of you. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week. And Dr. Sharon, you are clearly a genius. Thank you so much for your help today.
Blessings.
See everybody next time. Bye.